Okay, so you've brought us to this source, a recent article looking into the crypto market, and our job here, as always in the Deep Dive, is to sort of crack it open for you.
Yeah, pull out the key bits, make sense of what it's saying, like guides, really.
Exactly. We read the article, in this case, so you get the clear picture. And today's map, well, it's charting some pretty big waves in crypto.
Specifically, Bitcoin. There's been a notable price drop recently.
Right. And we're going to focus just on what this article says caused it. It mentions some maybe surprising things alongside the usual market stuff.
A high-profile disagreement, for one.
So yeah, sticking strictly to this source material, what made Bitcoin tumble? Who got hit? And what factors does this article point to? Let's get into it.
Okay.
So the starting point, the main event this article zooms in on, is Bitcoin's price. It took a pretty sharp dive over a recent 24-hour stretch.
That's right. The article flags this because Bitcoin dipped significantly, and it was heading back towards that, that big psychological level of $100,000.
And the source gives some specific numbers that show how fast it happened. It mentions Bitcoin hitting, what, $105,915?
Just over that, yeah, $105,950. But then within hours, it fell pretty hard, down to $100,500.
Wow, that's quick.
It is. And when the article went to press, it was sitting around $102,180.
Okay. And the article also looked a bit wider, didn't it? Like the 7-day trend.
It did. It cited CoinMarketCap data showing Bitcoin was actually down 3.61% over the week leading up to this.
So this wasn't completely out of the blue based on the source, but more like a sharp acceleration downwards.
Yes, part of a slightly rougher patch, but this 24-hour period was particularly dramatic.
And a drop like that, well, it always hits traders. The article says it caught traders offside. What does the source tell us about that fallout?
Well, the most direct impacted details is liquidations. Lots of them. It points to data from CoinGlass showing about $308 million in long positions. People betting the price would go up.
Right.
Those got wiped out just on Bitcoin in that 24-hour window.
$308 million just on Bitcoin longs. Ouch. And did the source say anything about the wider crypto market?
Oh, yeah. It broadened the scope. Across all cryptocurrencies, the total liquidations, according to the article, hit nearly $1 billion.
$1 billion?
Almost. $982.55 million in that same 24 hours. And again, the vast majority, like $891.63 million, were those long positions.
So the source paints a picture of a real shakeout, especially hitting anyone who was optimistic in the short term.
Definitely caught the longs offside, as the article put it.
Okay, so we know what happened, the drop, the liquidations. Now why? And this is where the article brings in some maybe less expected factors. The first one it highlights is, well, it's a bit unusual, a big public fight.
Yeah, it actually connects the dots, or at least suggests a connection. The source states the price drop happened right as this disagreement between President Trump and Elon Musk heated up again.
That is unusual to see linked directly to crypto price in an article. What specifics did it mention?
Well, it detailed the exchange. It mentioned Musk posting on X, I think it was June 5th, saying Trump's tariff plans could trigger a recession later this year.
Okay, I remember seeing that.
And then Trump firing back on Truth Social, talking about cutting Musk's government subsidies and contracts, saying it saved billions and billions.
Right. And didn't Musk say something dramatic about SpaceX?
He did. The source mentions Musk initially posted about decommissioning the Dragon spacecraft immediately, though it notes he kind of walked that back a few hours later.
Okay, quite the back and forth. But how does that, according to this source, influence Bitcoin's price? It seems a bit disconnected.
The link the article draws comes via analysts it quotes. It mentions Pav Hundal from SwiftX specifically.
And their take was?
The perspective cited is that this kind of public tension, especially around tariffs and economic plans, makes policymakers nervous. It might make them, delay easing up on monetary policy.
Oh, okay.
And that delay, the thinking goes, according to these analysts in the source, risks slowing down economic growth.
Which then affects broader market sentiment, potentially hitting crypto too. Is that the idea presented?
That's the connection the article makes, yeah. Risk of a growth slowdown spilling over.
Interesting chain of events there, as laid out in the source, connecting a political clash to economic fears to market moves. What else did the article point to? Any other factors?
Yes, definitely. Another angle the source brings up is what's happening inside the Bitcoin market, specifically long-term holders selling off.
Right, the HO dealers, the ones who usually hold on tight. The source says they're selling.
An increasing number of them, yes. The article ties this to the fact that Bitcoin had, recently hit those new all-time highs.
Ah, okay. Profit taking, maybe? Did it mention the high?
It did. It cited Glassnode, the analytics firm, saying Bitcoin hit $111,970 back on May 22nd.
So Glassnode's view, as reported in the article, is that these long-term folks are cashing in after that peak.
That's exactly the interpretation the article presents from Glassnode's analysis. It quotes their June 5th note saying something like, with long-term holders gradually applying sell pressure, the probability of a short-term correction continues to build.
Especially if there's no big news pushing the price up.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Particularly in the absence of a strong upside catalyst to push Bitcoin decisively above $111,800.
Right.
So the source frames it as this underlying selling pressure, making the market a bit vulnerable.
Okay, so factor one, according to the article, this external Trump-Musk thing potentially affecting economic outlook. Factor two, internal selling pressure from long-term holders taking profits. Was there a third element mentioned?
Yes, the source also briefly touches on the wider context, just, general broader macroeconomic tension playing a role in the price dip.
So just the overall economic climate adding to the mix.
You have a backdrop factor, yeah. And it wasn't just Bitcoin feeling this pressure, right? The article made that clear.
No, you mentioned the broader liquidations. Did it name other coins that dropped?
It did. It gave examples like ETH dropping over 7.25% specifically. XRP was down 4.35%, and Solana, SOL, slid 5.20% in that same 24-hour period. So a wider downturn.
Okay, so let's try and weave these threads together now. Based purely on this article we're examining, what's the overall picture it paints for why Bitcoin dropped and why those liquidations were so severe?
Well, the article really presents it as a mix, a confluence of different things hitting at once. You've got that external shock, the Trump-Musk spat.
Which, via the analyst cited, connects to economic policy worries, a reminder that, outside events can ripple through.
Absolutely. Then, layered on that, the source highlights the internal market dynamic identified by Glassnode, those long-term holders selling after the big run-up, profit-taking pressure.
Yeah.
And then finally, the article just nods to that general background hum of macroeconomic tension.
So it's the combination, the political drama, the profit-taking, the slightly shaky, wider economy, all contributing, according to the source.
That seems to be the narrative constructed in this particular article, yes.
And looking at it through this lens, what the article really shows you, I think, is just how complex these market moves can be.
Definitely.
You have something seemingly unrelated, like that public feud, filtering down through analyst takes and maybe shifting sentiment just enough.
At the same time as existing holders are deciding, okay, time to take some profit.
Yeah.
And all against a slightly uncertain economic background.
It really demonstrates that it's rarely just one single cause, doesn't it? It's this messy, interconnected system that this source tries to unpack.
Yeah, it's technicals, it's sentiment, it's behavior, it's external news, all tangled up.
Okay, so just to wrap up our deep dive into this specific source, we saw the article detail that significant Bitcoin price drop and the heavy liquidations.
Right, and it pointed fingers, so to speak, at a few key factors it identified. That high-profile Trump-Musk disagreement feeding into economic concerns.
The selling pressure coming from long-term Bitcoin holders after recent highs, as highlighted by Glassnode.
And just the general backdrop of macroeconomic uncertainty also playing a part.
And remember, this was us digging into the connections and the specific information presented in this one article.
Exactly, just unpacking what this particular source laid out.
And it kind of leaves you thinking, doesn't it? How all these different elements, from public arguments between powerful figures to cold, hard market data on selling patterns to investor psychology, how they all converge. It makes figuring out what really drives these markets day to day, while it's a fascinating challenge, it really makes you ponder the layers involved.
It certainly does. A complex picture.
Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive.